second. Boom, shared it on my feed on Facebook. So, but welcome to the Healthy with Heartland podcast, the show built around bringing value to the Mid-Atlantic and growing. We're committed to helping families eating cleaner, safer, healthier food. I'm Matt Balducci, husband, father, TEDx speaker, health nut, and business growth expert. And I'm here today with our co-host, the Sultan of Sourcing, the Bavette Barista, Justin Freishtat. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing well. Good morning, everybody. So before we get to our very, very special guest, Brian Sweeney, we're going to send it over to our creative directors for a few announcements. Simon and Shannon, take it away.
Boom.
Thank you all so much for tuning again to another podcast with us. If you haven't already, make sure you go ahead and follow us on Facebook. Check us out on Instagram for some delicious food photos. And if you miss any of these podcasts, all of our updates and full episodes are going to be loaded onto our YouTube channel. So that's youtube.com/heartlandhomefoods. Don't forget, our reorder special for this month is those butcher cut steaks from Creekstone Farm. So just a couple more days to schedule those reorders. Take advantage of that. And then we have an exciting announcement, a very special announcement. This week, we are excited to announce that Heartland is expanding into Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Growth. Let's do it.
To all of our Heartland families, let your friends and families know. We're ready to serve them. Go ahead and tag them in this post. Have them call us at 800-492-5592, or they can go to our website. They can schedule their free tasting. So make sure to take advantage of that. I will turn it back over to Justin and Matt.
Awesome, guys. So again, with the Pittsburgh announcement, the expansion, make sure that anybody out there starts sending our people, anybody in PA, our way, and we'll take care of them. So we're excited, guys. We have a special guest today. Brian Sweeney is actually coming up on his 3-year anniversary working with Heartland Foods as one of our referral partnerships. I'm going to give you his background, and then we're going to dive into some awesome value today on health, nutrition, and fitness, some of Brian's specialties. So Brian has an extensive background in the military. We just talked about it. He actually worked in Desert Storm. He did a couple different deployments. And because of that, he actually took that into fitness and basically is extremely passionate. If you get a chance, follow him on Facebook. He is extremely, extremely awesome at content. I follow him all the time. But right now, his clients actually call him the Warden, right? So, and that's simply being that he really, really focuses on pushing people to their limits, and he gets clients results simply because he's going to make sure that you get it done, all right? In addition to managing his gym, right, and working on the gym floor, Brian lends his expertise to corporate initiatives by speaking on topics of health, nutrition, and sports performance, which we're super excited about diving into with him today. Additionally, he contributes to technical development and product expansion for P90X. If you haven't heard of that, check it out, which is a Beachbody Format Expert. And he's also been featured as a talent lead in that's crazy. I'm just reading this section for the first time, but 24 Beachbody P90X live videos, as well as appearances on Xbox Fitness, Fitness on Demand, Beachbody on Demand, and the fitness reality show, The 20s. So as you can hear, he is extensively looked to for knowledge on health and fitness, and we're excited to have you, Brian. Welcome aboard, my man. You ready to rock?
Yeah, man. Nice. That's a hell of an intro.
What a resume.
Yeah, exactly. Hell yeah. And we're looking at your picture right now in there, and man, oh man, I could see why clients come to you for results. So, Justin, you want to take it away?
Yeah, we have so many questions for Brian, but let's just start with just a little bit about how Raise the Bar and Bull Run came to fruition. How did you guys get it started, and what does that look like for you?
Oh man, I'm going to give you, I was just going over this with another one of my business consultants, so it's fresh. I'm going to give you the really short version. I was actually in corporate for almost 20 years, so I was doing the DoD thing for quite a while, and it became a conflict in my life with what I wanted to do and what I felt like I needed to do. We broke away from kind of tradition, stable job, stable life. And it was right after a Tony Robbins event in 2011. A little bit of story before and after, but the Tony Robbins event really was the turning point for me. I came home in February of 2011 after one of those events, and I told Jenny, I was like, I think I want to quit this high-paying job, and I want to walk away from corporate and our retirement, and I think I want to open up a gym and start over. And she, I don't think she took me seriously because she said yes. But we 6 months later, we opened up Raise the Bar. So it was a very fast pivot in our life. And ever since then, we've been just kind of chasing opportunities to make people better.
So it looks like you guys launched in 2011 then, Brian? Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
So you almost, wow. So you're coming up on your decade anniversary here next year. So
Which will be
congratulations.
profound if we, knowing that we had a pandemic on year 9. So that'll be a pretty big award.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially getting through what just happened in all states, especially in the fitness industry. So that's
No doubt.
amazing. What event was the Tony Robbins event that kind of changed your trajectory?
It was Unleash the Power Within. It was a 4-day party, and my buddy drugged me down there because his wife bailed on him. And he's like, "Hey man, we got a free ticket." And I was like, "I'm not going to a Tony Robbins event, dude. I don't do that self-help thing." 3 days later, I'm standing on top of chairs with everybody else, like a nutcase. But it was profound. That event was profound in my adult life.
I love it. UPW, right? So
Yep.
freaking awesome. Yeah. Big Tony Robbins fan, but perfect. So, let's dive into, a little bit of, obviously you have an extensive background on health, fitness, and just really getting people results. So, what are some of the reasons that, you see people kind of struggling with weight kind of discipline? Why is so many people out there struggle to stay in shape? What have you noticed, Brian, in your, almost decade here of owning a gym, but also just overall fitness knowledge?
Yeah, man. And I like the softball you just kind of set up, because I think you guys have an idea as to where this is going to go.
Yes. Now you just have to hit it over the fence, baby.
Nice layup. If you take the human head out of it, right, you take all the decisions and the subconscious and everything that we do that drives our decisions, our history, our past. One of the biggest things, to take out the bigger discussion, which was just people and their personalities. And if you start looking at our food sources, especially when you start looking into processed foods, food with no calories, people not eating the right macros, I think that we aren't able to even grasp our situation without actually having the right food to give us that the energy and the sleep and the recovery that we need. So I think it predominantly starts with ultra processed food. I know that's a buzzword, and I'm going to pulling a carrot out of the ground is processed. If you want to talk to some of the agro geeks that talk about everything's processed, we're talking about where man's influence has changed food. That's where I can kind of see that this has led us down a really rocky road.
Got it.
Yeah. So with that being said,
Nice.
Your relationship to food, right? How important is that, and how can people, I guess, develop a healthy relationship with food?
Great question, by the way.
Yeah, this is a fantastic topic, and this is something where if you keep talking to somebody over and over and over again, I think the conversation can evolve into something that people can have that aha moment. It's very difficult as a trainer or a coach or a life consultant to tell somebody stop doing this and start doing this, because people aren't dumb. They want to understand why things are the way they are. And when you start looking at healthy relationships with food, we have food as a personality in our lives. We're very tied to it emotionally. When we party, when we mourn, when we're depressed, when we're happy, there's always food associated with it. And when we look at healthy relationship, especially when you start talking cultural influences, societal influences, it's very difficult to look at food as anything other than something that you gain comfort or joy with. And to kind of get people to break away from that mindset, we want you to start looking at food first as energy. It keeps you healthy. It helps you be the best kind of human, the animal side of us that just needs proteins, carbs, and fats in the right portions so that we can go about and do our thing. And if you can look at food kind of subjectively and be like, is that going to hurt me or help me? Grandma always made great pasta, but grandma had diabetes. Maybe I shouldn't eat so much pasta like grandma did, but we can't get out of our head that we're tied to the cultural influences. And if it was good enough for our grandparents, we should still be eating it. But, we're hoping to live longer than they did. So it plays into a greater conversation to get people to separate with something that they love, and it's very personal to them. It's like taking away their kid.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So dropping bombs, man. I love it. So
good.
It's funny. I was looking at Brian on the screen and waiting for words to continue coming out of his mouth, but we have a slight delay on our end, which is funny. But a couple key things to take from that is food is energy, right? We talked about food is medicine in the past, but food is energy, and I think sometimes it's really challenging for people to really just understand that. And I love what you said, Brian, is that food is associated with pretty much every single life huge life achievement, right? Celebrations, negative things in life, positive things. And I love what you said. If it's good enough for grandma, it's good enough for me. And we all know that, unfortunately, 20 years ago, many people did not know anything about nutrition, and we're still all working on kind of the education of that. So when you dive into that, let's say that I'm a newbie, if you will, right? I don't know anything about nutrition. I'm coming to you and I'm saying, Brian, listen, man, I have all these unhealthy habits with food. What should I do to just get started? Like maybe some basic principles that you introduce to newbies that are looking to become healthier.
Yes, and that's also, it's a huge discussion. So let's just say we're passing somebody in an elevator, and they're just looking. It's like, hey, I only got 15 seconds of your time. What should I do? Start looking at what you have in your refrigerator. I guess let's start going through the pantry and the refrigerator. And anything that's got more than 2 or 3 ingredients, you want to try to wean yourself off from them. So if there's a very short, direct recommendation, it's like start looking at the things that are super processed. Get your kids off that stuff too as soon as you can. Hello attention deficit disorder, hello behavior problems. Start getting those things out of the kitchen. Most people don't want to hear throw everything away, so I just tell them finish what you got and make it your goal over the next 6 weeks to only bring home things with 2 or 3 ingredients. Try to stay away from anything in a bag, box, or a can. That's I'll thin it down to that's my 20-second spiel.
No, that's a great tip. And again, guys, if you're listening, that's super, super important. And we talked a lot about that in our past podcasts, which is, when you go to the grocery store, what are you looking for and why we're so addicted to grabbing up the processed food. But, if you look into that, so let's take that a little bit deeper, from a standpoint of macros, right? So I know there's a lot of people out there that, they hear this term, right? Why should people track macros, and why do you feel that they're actually relatively important to success with food? Obviously, we're going into a little bit more of advanced, but why should people be paying attention to their fats, carbs, and their proteins?
Yeah. So nobody wants to track that stuff, right? And I can see people's eyes glass over as soon as we start talking macros, because there is a bit of a learning deficit between, you have to explain to them why it's relevant, and why they need to do these things to get started. And the way we kind of equate, when I'm talking to a new Fit Human client through one of our new programs, we start out, the way we learned to speak, the English language. First, it was just talk. Everyone understood how to have a conversation. So you're in kindergarten. Then they would graduate you up to, let's learn the alphabet. Let's learn sentence structure. Let's learn, how to actually put words together in a conversation. The experience or the journey with food is the same way. We kind of have to go back to the kindergarten level where it's like, hey, all right, let's break it down to the base level where it's proteins, carbs, and fats. These 3 macros make up the food that you eat. Then let's go ahead and start looking at which foods are great for your physical self. Some people are, they're carb intolerant. Anyone that struggles with insulin problems or blood sugar, or they have a family history of diabetes, you're more than likely going to be carb insensitive, right? You're carb intolerant, which means, carb intolerant. Which means you're not going to do well with processed carbs. So your life is going to be veggies, fruits, and proteins. Whereas somebody that's very high carb tolerant, they can eat all the carbs they want and they won't gain any weight. But until you have the understanding of what those things are, you can't teach somebody high level nutrition if they don't understand the basics. The goal is once they graduate from tracking, paying attention to what you eat, what is a protein, carb, and a fat, then you graduate them up to it's usually the complete opposite. We'll go to hand portion sizes after that, because if you're on the go, you're eating at a restaurant, or you've got to get something to a drive-through, you can kind of have a better understanding of what a serving is supposed to look like. Western society, we're typically 2 to 3 times over serving size than what we should be eating. So not only are you teaching somebody macros at that level, you're teaching them portion control and serving sizes. And to graduate out of that program, you get to the point where you're like, I don't need to measure because I know what 6 ounces looks like as far as steak or chicken or something else. I know what I'm supposed to eat, and your body will adapt to those portion sizes. But having that base understanding gets people to build in that lifestyle process. Otherwise, you're just another fad diet. Don't teach anybody anything. Just tell them what to eat, tell them when to eat it. And as soon as they come off that plan and somebody's not telling them what to do, they gain the weight back. So fundamentals.
Love it.
Yep. Makes a lot of sense. So one thing I want to ask you about, Brian, we've known each other for several years now. I've met probably 20, 30 families that work with you guys. And one thing I've noticed is the culture that you and Jenny have and the community that you have is one of the best I've seen across any of the health and wellness companies, gyms across
nice.
the region. So before I ask you the question of how you create that culture, just for anybody who's in Prince William County, that's where they're based out of. It's Manassas, Bristow-ish, right?
Yes, sir. Right on the edge there. Yep, Bristow-ish.
Yeah, so I guess just tell us a little bit about the culture that you all have developed there and why people see so much success and why they should come see you guys.
Yeah, so this is the plus and the negative, I guess, of the style of business that we are growing here is it starts with having an actual honest relationship with people. So coming from the military, and I think that's probably where most of that influence came from, is that you lead from the top. If you're going to try to lead people, if you're going to be, a fitness shepherd, terrible word, but if you're going to try to show people that there's a better path, you have to live it first. You can't be, I think your lifestyle is under a microscope when you're at that level. And if people see you walking the walk, they see you doing the hard work, they see you doing the boring stuff, I think they're more inclined to follow you. The upside of that culture is that the relationships are strong. The only downside to that is you really build hard relationships and it ends up being like a family. The highs and lows, if you're any type of an empath, where you struggle when people struggle and you have joy when people have joy, that's the up and downside to carrying those types of relationships. As hard as Jenny and I have been trying over the last 10 years to make it a business, it ends up being an extension of a family where people, their eyes are on you and they're watching you and you lead them and guide them and mentor them. And it just kind of helps make it seem that lifestyle is possible. People don't want to do something they don't think is real. And if you're living it every day and still being able to, I can still do happy hours. We can still do pizza if we want to have it. You just got to show them how to do that in proportions that make sense. Life doesn't stop being healthy. You just have to change the way everybody else's version of healthy is.
It's powerful stuff.
Super awesome. And it's fun. I'm going to add that to your bio, the fitness shepherd. Actually amazing. And it's interesting because you just gave leadership 101 there too. It's not just in the fitness industry but in life. If you don't walk the walk, it's super challenging for any leader to really ask somebody to do it, right? So and you see it all the time out there, fitness gurus and different people out there giving advice, but behind the scenes they're actually not doing that, and that's not a good leadership trait. So let's dive a little bit into Brian. Obviously you've been with us for almost 3 years, coming up here in October, which is crazy. As a company,
happy birthday.
I thought, like I said, I'm sad that I didn't bring our, some roses and some wine here today. But when you first got introduced to Heartland, what pushed you to use the service? Obviously we'll talk a little bit about you guys being a referral partner here, but what pushed you and Jenny to use the service and continue using it for the last 3 years, and then we'll go into why you've actually referred us to 30 to 50 clients or so over the last 3 years. Is that accurate, Justin?
I think it's close to 30.
Yeah, somewhere in the 20 to 30 range.
Yeah. So why have you been kind of a shepherd for us as well, where you went down that path? So what got you guys using Heartland?
Yes, and I'll just run through my kind of experience, because I think most of the people that we refer and most of the people that first hear about 6 months of high quality food delivered to your house at a time, the first thing they're going to ask is, how much is it? And there's a lot of times where initially, because it was a client that referred me to you guys, and he showed me his, the refrigerator that can double as a coffin when you die, or you can, I guess, will it onto somebody else. But the idea that you were going to go out and order that much food, and I'm so picky about the way we eat, and I was like, I just don't see it. But it was the cost objection, the change in the way we shop and cook, and everything was overcome as soon as we got a better understanding of the way our food source in the country is treated, sustained, abused. There was the initial conversation that we had with you guys where, unfortunately, and the people I tell, once you have that conversation, you can never go back. We were getting our stuff sourced either from grocery stores or from the local warehouses. And you can tell when you're prepping food that isn't right. It just doesn't smell right. It doesn't look right. And it freaking doesn't taste right, especially once you get a taste of something that's where it should be, or the way nature created it. But understanding better what our food source is in the United States, how it's treated, it became not just a I want to be healthy thing, but it turned into an ethical conflict with us. I don't want to support any type of an organization that abuses what we need to survive. And there's been some weird conversion in my later years here where I do believe that animals are noble creatures, and I believe that they deserve the respect in the way they're raised, grown, and even processed. I think it's just our obligation to do what's right in that regard. But overcoming everything happened when I had that initial conversation and had a better understanding of just what was going on.
I love it.
Which was tough. It was tough to hear.
I love it. In the segue, if anybody wants to learn more about our service, click on the link on our website. Check out the webinar, which is the Sultan of Sourcing himself, Justin, right? And you can have a virtual appointment with us, or we can come out and do an in-home tasting and do exactly what Brian just explained to you, which is educate you guys on how we source our product, as well as what's going on in the world currently and why that has effects on, your health and also just in general convenience of your life. So let's dive into our last question. Brian, when it comes to, health and living a healthier lifestyle, if you can just break it into, I know you have given a bunch of value and a lot of tips, but give 3 tips to everyone out there. I don't know if you could break it down into 3 tips, but 3 tips for anybody out there that's listening, that's saying, hey, listen, I just got out of this pandemic, or the pandemic's still going on. I've gained a bunch of weight over, quarantine. I got out of my typical habits when the gyms closed down. Maybe 3 tips that will help them, get back on track before, we're going into Q4 of the year.
Yeah.
Instead of getting excited on Jan 1, which you already know is what happens to most people. So how can they get a jump start before the new year?
Yeah. So the pandemic created a great opportunity for people to really assess their health overall. I mean, it's one thing to have an influencer out there that puts your health at risk, but there's another one that specifically is targeting people with health conditions that they should have addressed before COVID, and this not a judgment thing. It's a reality thing that people that are hypertensive, people that have high blood pressure, people that are overweight, people that are susceptible to diabetes, they're the ones that are having the hardest times with COVID. And now that we're in this, the second vacuum, I guess this maybe a second turnaround, maybe who knows. But knowing that we're going to be stuck indoors over the next quarter, and that if you are going to have the greatest opportunity for you and your family to not be leveled by something outside of the home, first thing is, we had already kind of talked about assess what you're bringing into the house, and money is absolutely a factor. And I'm not trying to be obtuse to the idea that financial resources are going to limit somebody's ability to eat healthy. And it doesn't help when food industries and fast food, they make garbage food available at a very low price. So if you've got a family of 5, your costs are going to skyrocket. But first, look at what you're bringing into the house. If you can't afford top shelf of anything, start by replacing something. If you eat a lot of chicken, then just replace the chicken. If you're doing a whole lot of stuff in boxes, find, even whole grain rice is better than anything out of a box. Start finding areas that you can make some progress in. It doesn't have to be a all or nothing, small progress. The second thing is to make sure that you're getting some activity level, especially now that we're heading into a time when we're not going to be able to be as social as we are right now just because of the weather, that if you are out and active the best you can, 10,000 steps is a nice target. I don't buy a whole lot into the steps idea because I don't think the devices are accurate enough to actually tell us what we're doing, but you should be out at least 60 to 90 minutes a day, getting some form of outdoor activity. It doesn't have to be a gym. It's another mindset shift that we're trying to make with people, that your healthy lifestyle doesn't have to be tied to a gym. It should be the opposite. You're in a healthy lifestyle, so you can go to the gym. It's not, you're going to get the healthy lifestyle because of the gym. So clean out the areas in the food, your pantry the best you can, get active. And then the last thing is to start paying attention to your health. If you aren't regular on your checkups, if you're not regular on your physicals, you need to kind of always keep an eye on your blood chemistry. Obviously, we've got the outward signs: being overweight, bad skin, bad digestion, fingernails, hair, everything kind of is an indicator of what your digestion and your systems look like. But if you're not regular on the checkups, you don't really know when something's creeping up on you. It's pretty easy to go out and get a physical, get all your blood work, and find out where you stand. And your doctor's going to talk about your your risks and everything else, but let that be fuel to drive you for the rest of the change. We can always kind of just buy off that 10 to 15 pounds, no big deal, I'll take care of it later. But what you can't see is that insulin sensitivity is being impacted, and that blood pressure is causing problems, and that not sleeping right for periods of time is going to have greater effects on your health. And those intangibles, something that people kind of overlook, taking care of those up front is going to help you a long way into starting that journey.
Man, oh man, we're gonna have to bring you back on, Brian, and dive into that on a podcast in the future, because I think from a knowledge level standpoint, one, I'm intrigued and I would love to have a conversation with you. I'm huge into looking at ancestrally what we used to do versus what we're doing now in the world, and then which you talked a lot about today, kind of dropped a couple hints on that, and then also at the end there of what you discussed, which is essentially how to go in and actually check some of these biomarkers that most people just don't even know how to go, one, figure out, and two, what is the benefit. So just to recap those three things. So basically it says just assess what you're bringing into the house. I love that. Look at what you already have in the home, eat it, get rid of it. And if you're strapped and tight financially, that's okay, but you can start basically making small changes and at least removing, maybe 33% of the bad stuff in the house.
Yeah.
And that'll have a huge impact. Number two is just get some activity. Obviously, people hear that all the time, but I love what you said, which is 60 to 90 minutes a day. It doesn't have to be 60 to 90 minutes straight. That can be broken into, 15-minute increments throughout the day.
Yes, sir.
And then the last one is just pay attention to your health, which, again, we absolutely need to get on another podcast and talk about the different biomarkers you can go track and know if, obviously the 10, 15 pounds, that's what we all talk about. But in reality, what is that really doing to you on your overall health? So I'm going to let Justin take over and just kind of close us out.
All right. Well, Brian, I just want to thank you so much for spending some time with us today. And I know
Thank
the
you.
Heartland family is going to love this one. And as always, stay healthy with Heartland.
Oh, that's
Thanks,
good.
Brian.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on.